Hello, I'm Josie, and today I'd like to talk to you about you and what you can do to help your horse when you're training him. I'm particularly going to talk about posting trot or rising trot, depending where you are and how you were taught it. I was taught rising trot, but posting trot, and how as a rider you can influence the horse greatly by being able to do it correctly. So I'll talk about the two common things I see riders not be able to do as well as they should, and I'll give you a couple of exercises to help you improve. Rising trot's important for the horse. We do it on young horses to get up off their back because they haven't developed the muscles underneath us along either side of their spine to carry us in the early days, so we can get the weight up off of that. And it also is a really good reward for a horse that's further along in its training, that has just done a little bit of intense work. You can then go posting trot and allow the horse to stretch those muscles over its back. The first part that you need to understand, and this does pertain to posting trot, is that we don't sit on our horse like we sit on a chair. You actually should stand astride your horse. So if the horse is whipped out from underneath me, I should land balanced and on my feet and not fall over. I'll show you a little bit of this from the ground because it might be easier for you to get. We are supposed to stand astride the horse. We don't sit on the horse, we stand astride the horse, and the area in contact with the horse should be from one knee all the way up through and down to the other knee. If you think about it, if you sit in the saddle in a slight chair seat, which is your legs forward, I'm going to put mine, actually I'm going to move back here so I can hang on to the rail because I can't keep my balance. So if I'm in a chair seat, I've got a lot of strength hanging on to that rail. If I'm riding my horse in anything other than walk on a loose rein, and I'm trying to get a contact, I am going to be hanging on to those reins whether I want to or not. The other thing is if you ride with your feet, your legs too far back in what's called a fork position. I can't do it because I'm going to land on my face. And even with my legs back and my body up here, I am tottering all over the place. So you're meant to be in a nice ear, hip, heel alignment for the reason that this gives you a good stable core. Your core is your center part of you, and that is the bit that I use when I'm riding. So when you're coming up out of the saddle, if you're in this position, you can actually just keep your hands still, and I want you to notice that my hips go to my hands. So particularly for posting trot, you need to be balanced so you can use your thigh and your core to get up out of the saddle, so you're not pulling yourself up on your horse's reins. Even a very slight chair, I've just pushed my centre of gravity back a little and I feel like I've got to hang on to the rail, which means I'd be hanging on to my horse's mouth. So let me know in the comments if you have a bit of a chair seat, if that's your default position, or a fork seat. Mine was very definitely a fork seat, and I still to this day have to remind myself to put my upper body back. So if you look at the saddle, the actual seat, the bit that you sit on a horse that's on the lunge, I'd like you to watch it. If you can, if you lunge a horse, watch it. It goes up, forward, then down. Up, forward, then down. Up, forward, then down. So it goes up, forward, down, up, forward, down. Nowhere does it go backwards, okay? So when we post the trot, we need to have our seat following where the seat of that saddle goes. So you need to rise up forward and then just come down. There's not any backwards in posting trot. If you sit backwards, you end up sitting in the back of the saddle and you bang your horse in the back. So my hips, if you watch my hand on it, should make an upward, forward arc. When you're doing this work with yourself, don't worry too much about what your horse is doing underneath you. Take this time to concentrate on you. So my hips make a nice arc, up, forward, up, forward, up, forward. or forward, up, forward, up, forward, up. And I don't go backwards. If I go backwards, here I am. It feels awful. I'm hitting him in the back, and I'm hitting him in the back of the saddle. So I pivot around my knee. I have weight in my stirrup, but I'm not stepping on it to get up out of the saddle. Up, 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 up. So when I'm teaching a young person or a beginner in rising trot, I just get them to concentrate on up, 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 up. The other good thing to think about is like an elastic band or an elastic rope on the front of your breeches, pulling you up, and it goes up between the horse's ears, because you need to bring this part of your back forward. You don't sit hunched like this around. It's up, 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 up. Now I've got core strength. That's what's keeping me in alignment with the horse and not all floppy like this. He doesn't like it. And because in the rise trot, I should be able to control the tempo. That was too much control because I got no rein. But control the tempo just with my rise. And if I rise bigger, he should go bigger. And if I rise faster, he should go faster. And if I rise slower, he should rise slower. Good boy. So the strength for your rise coming up out of the saddle, and actually the ability to sit back in the saddle softly, comes from your core and your actual thigh muscle. Okay, so you pivot around your knee, your feet are on the stirrups, but they're not being used to step up off. That's me stepping up off of them. And your shoulders should be very slightly in advance of your hips, because the saddle's going upwards and forwards, if you sit directly upright, which you do in sit trot, okay, you sit upright, but if I do that, I'm actually slightly behind Rebel's movement. And as a rider, that feels horrid. I only need to come forward a little bit. And as I said, my default position is the fork seat. So I often have to remind myself not to actually tip too far forward. So when it comes to returning to the saddle from the top of the post, you don't sit. Never do I actually sit. I'm going to see if I can show you what it looks like when I sit. Oh, he actually wants to stop because my horses are taught to go as we go. So as you need to have pretty good timing, which is why you need to give yourself a break and learn this properly, because your seat should come in contact with the saddle as it's at the very bottom of that down, as it's about to come up and go forward. So it actually works like a bit of a trampoline. When you get the timing right, it helps you come back up. So the other thing I see people have problems with is in rise trot, or in trot, the horse's mouth stays still. But in rise trot, we go up and down. Our hands are connected, or should be, to have a good contact to our horse's mouth. So your hands need to stay still because the horse's mouth is still. You have to follow the mouth. If it's not going anywhere, neither do you. And what I see is people rise trot. Actually, I'll see if I can do it. It's a stiff elbow and their hands go up and down with them. And you can see here already, Rebel's like, what are you doing? So you need to have elbows that open and close. As you come out of the saddle, they open. As you go back to the saddle, they close. It's only a small movement, but it's quite an important one. Now, I've had to dig this saddle out because I normally cut these off. But I use these things, which are supposed to go between the flaps of your saddle and around your girth to hold your saddle on. Please don't leave them floating around. They end up getting between the saddle and the horse's back, and that would be so uncomfortable for a horse. So what I get beginners to do, or even if you just want to see how elastic your elbows are, is to get these. They're awesome for this reason, otherwise I hate them, and hang on to it with your rein, so you've got your reins properly. Good boy. And trot off. So you need to keep tension on them. Try and keep your hands at the same height, and they will show you how much your elbows. So I'm actually got a tiny bit of upward pressure on this just so I keep it, otherwise they go loose and slack. You need to keep that pressure there, and you need to ride your horse. You can let go of this if things go pear-shaped. It's not that unsafe. You'll need to work out how short you have your reins as well, because trust me, if you've got your reins longer, you can't steer your horse. If you don't have anything like this, you can just grab some mane. I mean, we're not doing this because that's where we want your hands to be. We're doing this so you can get the feel of an elbow opening, or you can even hold the front of your saddle. I personally don't like that though, because hands aren't meant to be back in your crutch. They're meant to be out here. You can hang on to the mane with one hand and put your two thumbs together. Good boy. Whoop. So if you can hold that forward and then put the other exercise together off the rubber band, then you're riding your centre to your horse. And when he drops back there and behind the contact, I had to send him forward with my legs, not take my hands back. And that's how it should be. I'm not using strength to get out of the saddle. I'm using core tone like a dancer. That is the sort of tone you need to have in your body when you're riding a horse, is the tone like a dancer has. You don't see dancers like this. They have tone. It's a tone. So I'm using tone and my thigh muscles. Give yourself a little break if you're trying to do this. It's hard work. One lucky last exercise, and this one's not for the faint-hearted, but if you're willing to put even a minute in a ride and build up slowly, you'll be amazed at what it will do. Now, it's going to look ugly, but it's not about how it's meant to look. It's about teaching me and my body what's required. Because if you don't have core strength, you can't do this. And it's to actually rise trot without stirrups. Do a few steps, stop. Do a few steps, stop. If you need a monkey strap, a neck strap or something to hang on to it. Please don't hang on to your horse's mouth. So rise trot. So this way I'm banging a bit on the way down. I can feel it. You cannot have your heels down. That's impossible. I lose it when I put my heels down. I've got to lean a little bit more forward to get myself out the saddle. But I can already honestly feel my inner thigh from my inside of my knee up burning just from doing that little bit. You can't obviously get right out of the saddle. Good. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe, bottom right hand corner of the screen if you want to hit that and subscribe. I'm loving sharing these with you, and I'll see you soon.